G'day viewers and welcome back to another fantasy chat with Heff and Checkers for another week. This time we are recapping round 4. Sorry, I got round 3 written in front of me.
In the show
Making
notes.
sure I've got the right show notes in front of us. Checkers, big weekend in the fantasy world. How did it all go for you?
Big weekend fantasy world last week, big weekend footy world this week.
Yeah, okay.
It's a bit of a different one, isn't
It is, yes.
No, last week was an unusual one. I only went down a couple spots, but I thought I had a bit of a stinker in the fantasy game. I was ranked for the week 25,000, I think, but I only went down 40 spots overall in the overall ranking. So I'm assuming a lot of the top end of the rankings, a lot of the higher ranked coaches also had a stinker.
Yeah, well, it would be, for maybe your score, it seems that way. For my score, I still managed to drop 4,000 spots, so didn't matter too much for me. So, did you tell your score then?
The score was like 1801. I'm
Yeah.
just checking it. I'm ranked 377. So last week I was 333. Is it? It was
Something like that.
337.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I captained Connor Rosie, and watching that game on Sunday, I was pulling hair out, going, "This is it. I'm going to be back in the 5,000, 10,000 spots." I've got he's on. I think had one touch in the first quarter.
Got the Winhager clamp.
And also Butters was back in the middle, and it's just a bit of a midfield shift at Port Adelaide at the moment.
Yeah.
But watching it, I was like, oh boy, I'm going to drop down the rankings a lot, and then come ranking release, sort of scraped out okay.
Yeah, no, I'd take that every day of the week if I'm going to drop 40 spots. Try dropping 4,000 spots like me.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be me. I thought that would be me.
Yeah,
So.
I only scored 50 points less than you, or maybe a bit more, 53 points less than you. I got a 1748 and slid down to 15,000 just as I was about to creep into the top 10,000. What went wrong for you and what went right for you this week?
I skipped on bias. I said last week in the pod I was going to bring in bias.
I assumed you did because I looked at last week's notes.
I was messaging Louis all week talking about bias, and then real late on was it Thursday night or Friday night, the Geelong game, and they swung the late change. They put Stanley in an hour before the bounce. And I was heading around to Bailey McCabe's house to watch with Will Taylor and Caden McDonald, and we're going to park up and watch the D's play. And I was like, Stanley in means DeConing goes down back. I don't know if I'm going to like that role too much. So I swung the axe there and shifted it around and ended up bringing Lockie Ash. So it's not all hard.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did miss out on bias, which was a bit annoying because I was really hot on him all of last week.
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to have to get him this week. Just guess.
Funny story about that. Like the exact opposite thing happened to me. So I went to a mate's place. I was staying at a mate's place Friday night. The whole plan was to go out somewhere and watch the footy on Friday night. And we got there and we started chilling or whatever. And then all of a sudden, for some reason, they decided to drag me along to... Who did we go see? Williamstown versus Frankston in the VFL.
Some quality footy.
Oh my god, it was freezing there because it was like you know how the oval's on the. I've never been there before.
The
oval's on the ocean.
It's on the ocean.
Yeah, you can. It was absolutely freezing because I thought we were going to the pub. I was wearing shorts because I thought we'd be all inside all night. He's in walking distance from the pub, so went to there. And so I completely missed the news that Reece Stanley was in. So if I would have known that, I would have gone SDK to Bice. But didn't actually do it. So that's the killer there. But in the good thing about it though is in Supercoach, I'd actually kind of planned to do that already because of my my structure. So yeah, I did bring him in Supercoach,
one, but not the other
because I had too many holes to fill in the other one. So.
Cheeky Geelong with another late change. They do it all the time. I have a feeling maybe Stanley was in the whole week.
Yeah,
and they did that with Bailey
100%.
Smith the other week.
They always do that.
They just love to. They know their team and they don't tell the media about it till the last minute.
Nah,
so
that's what they do. So
if you've got Geelong players and you look at your fantasy team, you really have to make sure you refresh that AFL app.
Yeah. Well, so on the Supercoach side of things, because you get that 3 trades as well, like I had a bit of room to move, so I actually managed to get the SDK to Bice done, but I had the VC on gone. Then obviously the huge score from Bice had Lawler on field.
That's handy.
Heldhorn Francis, just everything went right. So I actually popped the 2,000 from best 18 in Supercoach and went up 15k spots.
That is handy.
So Supercoach, I'm clawing my way back more. Even though I'm still ranked higher in AFL Fantasy, I feel like I've got. I feel like I'm on top of things a bit more. And I think this week we go back to best 22 instead of best 18. I feel like my team may hold up a bit more because I don't really have that many rookies. I got a lot of mid prices.
I was speaking to Louis about this last week when we were talking about bias, and it was. Do you reckon maybe during those few bye weeks we got a bit of like a boost by having those rookies because you can cut the 4 off your worst 4 scores?
Yeah, 100%.
And then this week, maybe I'm feeling I might get a bit found out, and some of those coaches have been rolling a few extra rookies might get found out if the rookies don't perform.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to cop those 30s and 40s that have been getting cut off.
Correct. Yeah. So I reckon that we might see things a bit differently this week.
Mid-price teams could have a bit of a boost.
Yeah.
The next
So
few weeks.
I brought in Marich last week into my classic side. I'm rolling with the whole mid-price backline, essentially, pretty much a whole mid-price midfield, apart from the 3 gun rookies that are there. So hopefully holds me in good stead going forward. But proof will be in the pudding, I guess, and we'll wait and see what happens after that. Do we want to talk about your Supercoach too much more than that?
It's sitting about 20,000. I haven't put too much effort into it. I sort of just flicked the trades into it on the Thursday.
Yeah.
Never really done Supercoach too heavily. Given it a crack this year because Dos is obviously working there.
Yeah.
And he's always in my ear about Supercoach. So, it's not going horribly, but I haven't really studied too in deep on it. I've always been a fantasy guy.
Yeah.
Sorry if you're listening, Dos.
I'm starting to turn more towards it because I just find classics so hard with everyone. Like, you make one mistake essentially, and your season's gone. And a lot of the time, it's not even like stuff that you can predict. It's more just luck of the draw,
a sub,
that sort of stuff, or even just like a captaincy, or a couple bad week of captaincies, like
killing me the last
that sort
weeks.
of stuff. It just it's too hard to predict. Whereas Supercoach, I feel like there's less people studying it as in depthly, because you can't really study it. You don't really know the scoring formula and all that sort of stuff. So it's a bit more vibe and a bit more
scoring formula. So there you go.
It's a bit more gut feel about it. Anyway, let's move on to the pot of the week. But before we do that, I just want to talk about Geordie Sweet. We gave him a shout out last week. Absolutely smashed Rowan Marshall in the hitouts on the weekend. Only put up the 85 points in the Supercoach, but very good sign in terms of just ruck craft.
He was a mid-70 in the fantasy. If he's watching again this week, please kick the ball more. Stop handballing it. But no, if it's not a 75 might seem like a pretty average score, but look at the other rucks and what they're scoring. Rucks are down across the board at the moment. Your only other point of difference ruck that's sort of blown out the water, Luke Jackson, just got injured on the weekend.
Yep.
You got Tristan Cherry rolling around
Hamstring.
with some issues.
Tendonitis or something,
Gorney's getting taken out of the game a bit. Maybe he's going over the hill. I don't know. Melbourne are struggling as a whole, as a team. So the scoring's down there. And Rowan sort of struggled on the weekend. So one advantage of Geordie Sweet, whoever he's playing, he negates. What is that? Is that the word?
Something like that. Yeah,
it stops them from scoring too much. He's very good at knocking them out of the game. If he's not getting lots of the ball, what he'll do is minimise the damage. So Rowan Marsh had a bit of an average score on the weekend, and I think Geordie really locked him down.
I think it was 85, 86, but in Supercoach, I'm not sure what it was in fantasy. But just good to see good signs, really, if you're beating a class ruckman like that in the middle. He's
a bit cheaper, and he's pretty much bang on average of what Cherry and the high ownership ruckman are doing. So
all right, my pod, I got 2 this week. First one is a bit more of a rough one because he's, I think, still 600k or something like that, so it's a bit more expensive. But really liking Jasper Fletcher's game at the moment. He was a player that I absolutely loved as a junior. I can't remember who got. I think it was Will Ashcroft got picked up in the same year, so he didn't really get the hype that he did. But he was kind of like the next pick that they got out of their academy at Brisbane, and just a really classy young midfielder. Put up a 90 average in the NAB league in his debut and in his rookie year, his draftee year. Sorry. This year though, he's spending a lot more time off the halfback flank. Put up his first kind of ton on the weekend. There's probably a lot of Richmond factor to this score, but he's one I've just got my eye on for more so future, maybe more draft and keeper leagues, but one for the future, because if he plays that halfback role, and who knows where Kadeen Coleman's at, Dane Zorko's on his last legs, he could be the guy that moves into that role in the future and could be a decent fantasy scorer.
I think I brought him up the very first pod as someone that I had an eye on over the preseason. He is classy with the ball. He's pretty composed, and as a result, he's not a massive accumulator, but as a result, he's played a lot of footy straight from the get-go.
Playing the grand final. He's got a grand final medal.
He's pretty much hasn't missed a beat, but we're just waiting for that shift in position. He started his career off half forward, not a great fantasy scoring role unless you're kicking bags of goals at Brisbane like a Zach Bailey or someone like that.
Yeah.
So he's been more just class ball user, and I'm just waiting for that shift to in the midfield and half back where you can really start racking him up. Obviously got a bit of time there. This year, he's played a bit more on the wing this year.
Yeah.
And you've seen his scoring go up. I think he was averaging 55 from memory last year.
Yeah. Well, the 2 big scores he's had, though, have come from playing half-back this year. So
the shift in role, he's definitely got the ball using and the composure. So they like putting games into him. They just got to find the position to use that best.
And I think last year, him and Berry were rotating wing and forward, but now it's more of a wing half-back rotation.
Which is definitely, we know from Kadeen Coleman's scoring, that's a good position to be playing at Brisbane. I'll just give a plug to his dad who let me into his corporate box at Brisbane the other week. So
that's right. You're saying.
Adrian Fletcher let me come in and have a few meat pies off of his plate because I've walked past his corporate box. So he was loving it. He was loving. I think Jasper kicked a goal or something. So he was really up and about. I got him on a good time.
Well, another pod that I've got on my list is only 3% owned. That's Luke Ryan. That's his best game for Freo so far. Just looking at their kind of defensive lineup, like. He dropped off the map last year, but it kind of coincided when Alex Pearce got injured. And I know he hasn't started well this season, but Freo weren't really playing great footy. They've started playing some good footy again. And so you've got Pearce and Cox taking those kind of defensive roles. You've also got Draper, I think it's Josh Draper, kind of does more defensive, kind of a third tall role, which kind of leaves him to play off some of those smalls a little bit more. And yeah, we always know he's been like a kick-out king, like he always takes heaps.
He's been a mark king. When there's been games where Luke Ryan will have 14 uncontested marks, and that's when you get these 140, 150 juicy scores down back, and he can really like dominate a week. Yeah, and can boost up the rankings. So
I'm less high on that these days because they seem to be playing more direct. They're not playing as chip around because they've been playing better footy since they've stopped chipping around as well. But I do like the fact that he's playing on a lot of smaller opposition, just given the makeup of their backline, and he can kind of outmark them and things like that as well.
Just flag. They played the Dogs historically over the last 5 or 6 years, on the Bevo era. Yeah, pretty horror at being defensive inside 50. You usually see a lot of those like chip mark defenders always score well against the Dogs.
Okay. Yep.
Earlier in the year, I was watching a few Freo games, like the first 2 games, I reckon, with Trey. Trey's a massive Luke Ryan fan.
Okay, yeah, that's right. He said that to me before,
sends him a message every week before his game.
Does he respond?
Yeah. Luke Ryan gets around. And Luke Ryan sometimes asks Trey how he goes, and it's usually had no touches and didn't get near it. But, I mean, he wasn't playing. They're not playing the chip style anymore. That's been the Freo game plan for a long time, and I feel like he was a bit out of it. I was like, I don't know if the game plan's gone past Luke Ryan here and his fantasy potential, but against the Dogs, maybe wound it back a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Well, he comes up against Richmond this week.
So it could be another one, but then again, we saw Zorko take the foot off the pedal a little bit. So we see.
Yeah, true.
Luke Ryan's probably, is he 28 years old?
True. We won't talk too much about Zorko because I didn't put too much on that because I said I would. But yeah, I was guaranteed 150 last week, and what do you get, half of that?
70 something.
Yeah, 75. Yeah. Anyway, what are your pods for the week?
Talking about those rookies before and whether maybe we need to get some of those rookies off the field because we've been blessed by these buys. I'm looking at primos, and I've been brought up George Hewitt last week. He went okay.
Yep.
Another ton, four tons in a row.
Averaging 110 at the moment?
Something like that. Yeah. 108, 110.
108, yeah.
I did tweet Carlton 0-4, George Hewitt 4-0 because he's just plugging tons in his losses.
Nice.
Noah Anderson, I think he scored 92 last week, so around the mark. But another premium that's come to the table, Caleb Serong. We know he's still young. He's still improving. Slow start of the year. He had an 80, 80, 100, 121. So he's warming into it.
Yeah.
The CBAs have been there. No change in the role or anything. I just think maybe Freo had a few stinkers early on.
Yeah.
But he has an easy run coming up. So they got Richmond at Gather Round. They play Melbourne, who we know are struggling.
Yeah.
The Crows, who could be on the back end of a bit of struggle. They had an easy start of the season, but we could see them, if they lose to Geelong, could see a bit of struggle there.
Yep.
And St Kilda, who are also flying at the moment, but I would predict probably fall away as well in the next few weeks.
I really like that pick, yeah.
An easy 4 weeks. Richmond, Melbourne, Crows, St Kilda. Scored 121 against the Dogs on the weekend.
Yep.
He's 100k cheaper than he started the year at, so you get him a little bit cheaper. I know a lot of people started the year with him and maybe traded him after those 280s.
Yeah.
Jump back on.
I lost my first keeper league matchup of the year last week, and it was the exact amount between Serong's average and what he scored on the weekend. So that's how far above his average he went for the season. So he is starting to hit some good form. Like you said, nice run of games coming up with some pretty easy opposition coming up too. So
he's 9.4% owned. So is it a pod? But I think in the premium,
under 10%, I'd say that's a pod.
In the premium sort of world, there's a lot of people talking about Dacos all the time, and those guys who are like 50% owned. So I think a 9.4% owned mid's pretty handy.
Dacos comes up against James Jordan this weekend.
Yeah, so we can hold another week on there.
I'd rather be going to someone like Serong with the Richmond game. That's for sure.
I put one more pod in my list just because I thought 9.4%. It's not good enough. I need to grab something a little bit juicier for you.
I think not. I think under 10's fine, but go on.
It's a bit normal. So I went James Harms. This isn't a long term. This is if you're just backing a 1 weeker in. If you're in a draft league maybe, or you just want to roll a 1 weeker, you wouldn't do that. Don't do this in fantasy. But if classic. But if you're in draft and he's on a waiver or something, James Harms scored 88 2 weeks ago, 103 last week. There has been the talk of Libba maybe getting rested. Maybe he's a bit cooked.
Yeah.
There has been Bontempelli's still not going to be in. Treloar's still not going to be in.
Treloar's re-injured himself.
Yeah, well, he'll be even more weeks away. But so Harm's been playing like this half-forward link-up role, and they're playing at Norwood this week, which we know is a bit of a smaller oval. We've seen Jack Lukosius kicked a goal from the centre of the oval there once. So what I'm thinking is if he plays that half-forward role, he's probably going to hit the scoreboard with a few goals. We could see a James Harms 3 snags week this week.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't play the half-forward role and Libba is actually cooked and he goes in the midfield, they're playing Brisbane. He's a big tackling beast. He had 7 tackles last week.
Yep.
He's going to be wrapping up McCluggage and Neil and Dunkley, so we could see a lot of tackles.
Yeah, I think that that Norwood Oval point is a good one to make because I think Kay's put out the numbers last year. I don't think he's redid the numbers, but I think they do work on last year's numbers as well. Is that, Norwood Oval has been a huge fantasy scoring ground. That skinny ground, everything's kind of
midfielders
directed.
who kick goals, I'd be heavily watching on because it's not that far from the middle to the goals. It's a little bit smaller, the oval. So so those guys can get forward of the ball. Maybe a Tom Green kicks a couple this week. But James Harms is one who'd probably playing in that half-forward range and he could get busy.
It has really narrow boundaries as well. Go on Google Maps and have a look at it. It's crazy. So it's crazy that there's an AFL game being played there because everyone's forced to play direct as well. So, there's a lot of fantasy scoring
That's just my one. That's just my one prediction for like a pod.
Yeah.
If you're running a draft league and you need someone to save you this week, I think, Harms could be good for 95.
What I think's been good about these pods as well is like there's a lot of the times like you can't get up to the primo, but you don't want to double downgrade at the same time. Some of these guys could be a good like stopgap, kind of midterm, 500, 600k type thing that you kind of play for 2 or 3 weeks before you can get them up to a primo as well. So that's what I've found having to listen back to some of this and having a look at some of it. Wish I'd followed our advice a bit more on some of them. Anyways, let's get into the hot takes. My hot take for this weekend, there's been a bit of a conspiracy lately. So we've had on the weekend the Rankin no mark paid, but it started I think 2 years ago really with the Ben Keys hit the post with the umpire didn't review it. On that, I know that umpire quite well. And he is a mad Crows supporter. So
he's copped a lot of hate.
He's quit umpiring now.
Did you see the other week, was it Fogarty kicked a goal and the Tex celebrated it and it hit the post?
Yeah.
It clearly hit the post. It bounced off the post, deviated. But because the whole Crows team celebrated, I think they called it a goal and had to goal review it.
Yeah. So you'd probably rather that than as long as they review it.
So there has been a bit of conspiracy about the Crows lately.
So I reckon we leave that umpire alone because I know he's devastated over that, being a mad Crows man and pretty much quit umpiring now over it. So leave him alone. Anyway, Sam Draper, he was laying on the ball, I think, last year. And then there was a Jordan Dawson high tackle that wasn't paid against Collingwood the year before that. And then the Rankin no mark, obviously. So my hot take, my bold prediction is going to be we're going to see an overcorrection this week, and the Crows are just going to get the absolute rub of the green against Geelong on Thursday. The AFL say, hey, just turn the blind eye to a few of them. And as a result, I think the Crows are just going to put up a massive fantasy score. Thursday night, opening gather round, I think every Crows player is going to go bananas this week. So make sure you've got the VC on Dawson on Friday night. If Rankin gets up, hopefully he can go okay. But I think every player, back in Peatling for another big game, like all those kind of
Fogarty
players.
with his new tattoo.
Yeah, Fogarty with his new tattoo. Laird's going to go massive off the halfback. They're all just going to get the rub of the green this week, and it's going to be a big week.
Played Geelong, who historically everyone always whinges about them getting the rub of the green when they play at GMHBA because their crowd is very vocal and maybe pressure the umpire into decisions. Maybe it goes the other way around. It's at the Crowville, the Adelaide Oval, and they've had a few go against them, so maybe the crowd sort of extra loud on every free kick call.
Just absolute overcorrection this weekend. You wait and see.
That'd be a great way for the media to kick off a great gather, and the media will eat that up. That'd be great to read all weekend.
Anyway, what are your hot takes for the weekend?
Well, you spoke about Geordie Dawson. I was just going through gather round stats. I was just punching in gather round stats the last two years. We only had 2 years of data to look through, but he's gone 112 and 133 at both gather rounds. Crows have played the Thursday night every gather round. Is it correct? They played Carlton.
Yep.
And then last year
Melbourne.
they played Melbourne. This year they got Geelong on the Thursday.
Yep.
They get it out the way early. They don't get a lot of the media heat. I worry for Port Adelaide. They're going to cop article after article all weekend.
Doesn't matter.
But
Doesn't
there'll
matter.
be a lot of media attention on Port Adelaide all weekend while we're here. But the media attention doesn't quite get the Crows because they get the game done early.
Yeah.
So that's a tick. They're flying at the moment. They lost on the weekend by 1 point, but they are flying at the moment.
Well, Geordie Dawson, I think as well. Like the last three, go back to him. The last three, because I've got him in my keeper league side, so I've had the VC on him every time. And I reckon you put me in a Adelaide AFL.com.au video where I was just frothing over Geordie Dawson's halftime score because he was on like 100 or something like that. So no doubt Geordie Dawson's going to go huge again.
Yeah, I think number one, it's gather round. There'll be a lot of like buzz in the city.
Yeah.
Rankin, I was at Crows training yesterday. He wasn't on the track. I don't know if he's going to play. If he plays, he copped a knock to the calf and went up forward late in the game against Gold Coast. So if he plays, do we see him in the midfield? Is it one they risk, or they just put him in the forward pocket and he lights up the Eddie Betts pocket?
Yeah.
So I think Dawson's going to have to take control of the midfield. He's going to want to get the week off to a good start. The crowd's going to be behind the Crows, and I think Dawson lifts in these moments at Adelaide Oval. Like, he kicked the goal after the signing against Port Adelaide in the showdown, and he's one who just likes to put the team on his back and carry them. And it's one where first night, gather around, put the team on your back, carry the midfield. I'd say Geelong gave a lot of clearances the last few weeks as well. So if there's no rank in there, I can expect Dawson to be really tucking in and going hard for clearances. So I think, obvious VC point, but I think we'll get a 130, 140 score to kick off gather round with from Geordie Dawson.
Beautiful. All right, any other hot takes?
I was just looking through some players that could go okay this week. Jai Caldwell has Melbourne. There's talk of the Sparrow tag. Does that go to Merritt?
I think Caldwell's out injured.
Is he really?
Yeah, he's done the hammy.
Bloody
so he's
hell.
missed this week.
Well, we can cross that one off the list.
Yeah.
Hopefully Sardis is back. But I was just going to say against Melbourne, I think there's going to be a Essendon midfielder that has to pick up, especially if the tag goes to Merritt.
Yeah, this actually did cross my mind as well.
Someone from Essendon is going to have to take them. If Merritt gets tagged, I don't know if they will. I don't know how good Sparrow's going to be at tagging Merritt. But
yeah, well, I think he'll go okay. Do you know who comes to mind in that one, which is real rogue? Dylan Shield.
Yeah.
So had a big game against Port. If Merritt will cop all the attention now. He's the guy who's kind of moved in. And this is kind of one of my hot takes that I thought I had as well. Dylan Shield, I think, just definitely goes back into the midfield. Given that I think Sardis is still a week away, Will Setterfield's someone that could come back into that side for them, but he probably will do a defensive job anyway. So I reckon Dylan Shield on the back of that could go big. But the other one that kind of has a flow-on effect for me was Sard El Hawley. So 2 weeks ago against the Power, he came on at three-quarter time and absolutely lit up the game type thing with his speed. His kicking wasn't great, but he was pretty electric when he came on. I reckon with the hype he just got last week, he was interviewed with his whole family after the game. He'll get a full game this week, and if Shield stays in that midfield, I reckon he'll get a fair bit of it across the half-back against Melbourne.
With Sard El Hawley, is that how you say it? Sorry, I haven't said that name out loud before.
Yeah.
Melbourne midfield, they're saying it's a bit cooked. Like Track, Viney, Oliver, they lost a bit of their pace and buzz.
Track's going forward a bit more.
Yeah, do you use his speed to break that midfield open? Like,
it's probably more coming off the half-back.
But if they find a bit of speed in there, like he could get I'd love to see 5 or 6 running bounces down Adelaide Oval wing.
I reckon we could see that from El Hawley. So
I'm just looking through some more players. I'm just going to give a shout. Connor Rosie, I'm tempted to trade. Butter's back. He didn't have the full CBA. He was rotating on forward. He's been a bit out of sorts the last 2 weeks. But just saying, Hawks gave up tons to George Hewitt. They gave up some good scores to Chera and Walsh. They gave up 146 to Caldwell. So maybe if there's a week to bounce back, it's that Hawks game.
Could there be a hot take that maybe West Coast get their first win this week and Carlton go 0-5?
That would be some crazy content for us. And then just another hot take. I've seen Garcia still on the most traded out list. He had 7 clearances on the weekend, which was still pretty good for someone who only had 8 CBAs, I think. Jack Steele, if he's back, maybe, I'd push the trade. But if he isn't, Garcia...
Yeah. That's the reason I held Garcia last week, because Jack Steele remained out.
Jack Steele's still out. So the score
what the
wasn't
going on there, by the way.
The score wasn't crazy good, but the 7 clearances was still there. So I think he's still going to get a good midfield.
He just didn't take any marks or anything like that.
Yeah. There wasn't many marks in that midfield, to be honest.
Had one of those games. So I like that as well. If Steele can start, probably go one more week with Garcia, because we saw what he did the week before. Without Steele on the side, put up a big one. Anyways, we might wrap that one up. What's your trade plans for the week?
Trade plans, get Riley Bice in.
Yeah.
That's a must. I missed that last week. And then I just want to get a primo in. Haven't really brought any primos in. I brought a few mid prices and a few rookies in.
Yeah.
So I need to find some cash to get a primo in. I don't know how I'm going to do that. Maybe I have been looking at Rosie.
Yeah.
Do I chase SERONG? It seems a bit sideways. But I want to get a primo in, so I'm going to have to try and look around how to shuffle some cash. Get bias and get a primo. That's the plan.
I think that's the exact same plan for me. We must have copied each other's notes here. Get bias in first, either Fraser or SDK. It's probably going to be Fraser.
Although I can 44 on the weekend.
Who are the Dogs playing this week?
Brisbane.
Yeah, no, that's tricky as well. So,
tackles, there could be a lot of tackles out in the Barossa.
No, it's more so as well that that's actually probably a good shout. But it's more so that like he's getting shunted around in so many, like he gets stuck forward when they're resting and stuff like that. He just doesn't really get near it. Fraser's someone I wanted playing off the half back line, and I think he will later on in the season when Bont comes back, when Treloar comes back. You'll see him play off the half back and actually be a good scorer. But he's struggling now because he's having to pick up a heap of that midfield kind of weight at the moment. So anyway, I think it'll probably be him or maybe SDK because I reckon he'll have to play quite defensively with the Crows having 4 pretty much tall targets that they could hit up.
I think I just said Barossa, but is it Brisbane playing at Norwood? Oh,
that's even better because that's a good fantasy scoring oval. Going up. I do have 450k in the bank at the moment as well. So
that's pretty handy.
Depends if O'Driscoll. I can basically get anyone I want really. Maybe if O'Driscoll doesn't pull up, then I might bring him on. He's still got a low break even though. He's still got money to make. So I wouldn't mind maybe trying to go Finn O'Sullivan up. But that only depends what I can do with bias. Actually, I may be able to go Finn O'Sullivan up to someone big as well and get him off my bench and that kind of onto the ground and then reshuffle. We'll get another rookie off essentially. So
one more thing, I probably should have put this in the hot takes, but Gather Round is in Adelaide. Obviously, there's going to be 9 games here.
Yeah,
and it's hot all weekend.
Yeah,
it's 28
degrees.
28 to 32 degrees all weekend, which is something we don't really see across the whole fantasy week. Normally, you get a couple games in Tassie or freezing rain or whatever it is. It's going to be hot and sunny all week. Do we see cramps? Do we see some primos get subbed?
Seeing a lot of pickle juice consumed this week.
Well, I'm worrying now about blokes like Dane Zorko and there's some of these older guys who run all day. Do we see them cramp up? Do we see any issues? The other thing is they play some games out in the Barossa and at Norwood where it's not as built up stadiums.
Yeah.
Do we see any wind affection?
Yeah, I think the weather's supposed to be kind of nice this week.
When they play at Ballarat and places like that, you often see a lot of out in the falls.
Yeah,
and some struggling. They struggle to enter forward 50 sometimes. You see a lot of intercept marks. So just those Barossa games, I'm keen to see if there's any wind, whether we see 15 intercept marks or something crazy.
Another one to flag. Anyways, thank you for joining us for another week. Make sure you're subscribing to our channels on YouTube. Also get around our content on all the socials as well. And we'll talk to you next week.
If you're in Adelaide for Gather and come up and say hello.
100%. Come say good day. I love meeting listeners and viewers and whatever. So definitely come up and say good day. Anyways, thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.